US authorities say the additional 10% tariffs imposed on Chinese imports by US President Donald Trump also apply to Hong Kong. The US Postal Service temporarily suspends the acceptance of incoming international parcels from both China and Hong Kong until further notice.
We'll speak to him at the appropriate time. I'm in no rush.
And US President Donald Trump says he is in no hurry to talk to his Chinese counterpart about the trade war. Good evening. You're now watching Cable News. I'm Cheryl Yun. The trade wars between the United States and China continues to heat up, with the U.S. announcing that the additional tariffs of 10% imposed on China also apply to Hong Kong. In a notice dated February 5th, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security and U.S. Customs and Border Protection stated that, in accordance with an executive order on Hong Kong normalization signed by Donald Trump during his first term as the U.S. president, Chinese products include products of both mainland China and the SAR, and hence the additional tariffs are applicable. Additionally, goods from mainland China and Hong Kong will no longer benefit from the de minimis exemption for shipments with a retail value of $800 or less that are imported by one person in one day. Meanwhile, the US Postal Service has hit pause on accepting inbound packages from Hong Kong and China, a decision deemed to be linked to recent changes in US trade regulations. Bess Leung reports.
The US Postal Service has announced on their website that they will temporarily stop accepting inbound international packages from China and Hong Kong until further notice, but has not provided a reason. While the suspension affects packages, other mail items like letters, large envelopes, newsletters, and magazines will remain unaffected. Meanwhile, post office staff in Hong Kong have confirmed that they have stopped receiving parcels, packets, and multi-pack delivery services to the U.S. following the latest measure. Willie Lin, chairman of the Hong Kong Shippers Council, expressed concern about the suspension's impact on e-commerce platforms, as many online retailers depend on Hong Kong Post for shipping. He highlighted that customs declaration procedures will become significantly more complicated, leading to a rise in cost due to administrative fees. Lin also raised concerns about goods already in transit, questioning the handling procedures and whether consumers will receive the products or refunds. Separately, global logistics leader DHL has announced that it will no longer accept individual shipments destined for the U.S. This came amidst an escalating trade dispute between the U.S. and China, as the two nations traded an array of actions after an additional 10% tariff on goods from China and Hong Kong came into effect on Tuesday. In addition, U.S. President Donald Trump has also signed an executive order scrapping the de minimis exemption, which previously allowed shipments worth less than $800 to enter the U.S. duty-free and unchecked. Bess Leung, Cable News.
Despite a looming Sino-U.S. trade war, U.S. President Donald Trump said he is in no rush to speak with his Chinese counterpart President Xi Jinping and shrugged off the series of Chinese retaliatory actions, while the White House said the call is still needed to be scheduled. Evelyn Bai reports.
Any update on when you would speak to President Xi?
No, we'll speak to him at the appropriate time. I'm in no rush.
Less than 24 hours after the world's two largest economies exchanged tariff actions, U.S. President Donald Trump shifted his stance from holding talks soon to downplaying the call. Amid expectations that the talks would ease tensions of tit-for-tat actions between the two countries, White House spokeswoman Caroline Leavitt noted that a call between the two leaders is still needed to be scheduled, revealing that Xi has reached out to Trump to speak, maybe to start a negotiation. regarding China's countermeasures, which included a 15% tax on U.S. coal and liquefied natural gas, as well as a 10% tariff on crude oil, Trump remained unfazed.
It's fine. It's fine. We're going to do very well against China and against everybody else. Right now, they've taken advantage of the Biden administration like I've never seen.
Meanwhile, investment bank Goldman Sachs projected that Beijing's retaliatory duties will have a limited impact on energy costs, as U.S. volumes are likely to easily find alternative buying markets. U.S. liquefied natural gas exports are likely to increase, Goldman said. As Trump agreed to a 30-day pause on tariff actions against Canada and Mexico, Mexico began deploying troops to the border to combat illegal migration. Evelyn Bai, Cable News.
In response to Donald Trump's no-hurry words, Foreign Ministry spokesman Lin Jian reiterated that the dialogue needs to be based on equal and mutual respect. During a regular media briefing, Lin noted that when the two heads of state had a phone call on January 17th, China had already stated its principles and position, and the two sides had reached principled consensus on mutually beneficial cooperation. Lin added that what is needed now is not imposing additional tariffs unilaterally, but dialogue and consultation on an equal footing and with mutual respect. He did not disclose the specific time for the talks between the two leaders. A 5-year-old girl who suffered a cardiac arrest while getting stitches at Yanchai Hospital has passed away this morning after an 8-month hospital stay. Lai Sung-yut was admitted to Yanchai Hospital last May after a fall at home resulted in a head injury. While getting stitches on a wound on the back of her head, her heart stopped beating for 18 minutes. She had been in intensive care at Prince Margaret Hospital ever since. 2 staff members were later charged with ill treatment or neglect over the incident. The hospital authority reported that Sung-yut's condition worsened earlier this week, and she was in critical condition before her passing today. The spokesperson expressed deep sadness over her death and pledged support for the girl's family. The case has been referred to the coroner for follow-up. Rail services on MTR's East Rail line had been badly disrupted for some 7 hours this morning due to an equipment fault on an engineer's train. At one point, train intervals had been adjusted to up to 24 minutes at certain stops. Operations gradually resumed after 1 p.m. Evelyn Bai reports.
At around 5 a.m., an engineer's train was stranded near Taiwo Station, where some wheels deviated from the rail. Engineers were on site for urgent repairs to restore normal operations. This forced the East Rail line between Taipo Market and Lowell stations to temporarily convert to one-lane, two-way traffic. A large number of commuters waited at the platform of the Taiwo station, with some entrances being temporarily closed. At Sheungshui Station, MTR staff assisted commuters in choosing other public transport. This man said he had planned ahead after hearing the news and gave MTR a big thumb for handling the situation clearly, providing advance notice about the traffic conditions. While this woman did not know what was happening, she found it very inconvenient and had to call her son to pick her up. The city's sole railway operator apologized for the disruption, saying that a leveling sensor in the train malfunctioned after it completed work on the rail section early this morning. Lee Kim-hong, Chief of Operations Engineering Maintenance, clarified the train was not derailed.
In the course of the recovery, we find some of the wheels are off rail, but not really derailed in the course of the running. So the train remains stationary at all times.
At around 1 p.m., the East Rail line services gradually returned to normal after removing the engineer's train. Evelyn Bai, Cable News.
A government health expert alarmed that flu cases in the city is still on the surge as students and residents return from holiday, adding that the influenza season may last until April. Bess Leung reports.
The city logged 199 severe influenza cases last month.
每一年嘅流感季節似乎都係呢啲咁嘅日子啦。
Taking to the airwaves, Edwin Choi, controller of the Center for Health Protection, warned that there were usually more outbreaks in schools and workplaces during this period, as Hong Kongers traveling abroad started to return after their trips, expecting severe transmission to happen once students start going back to school next week. While flu seasons in Hong Kong typically lasted 2 to 4 months, Chui anticipated that this flu season will last until March or April. Chui said a surge in vaccine inquiries and bookings were seen recently, especially among the younger generation. While there was a sufficient supply of flu vaccines in the market, with at least 140,000 doses reserved for private clinics, the health expert urged residents to receive flu jabs as soon as possible.
今年嗰個流感咧，咁其實都係好多不確定因素啦。
Speaking on the same program, family doctor Lam Wing Wall said this flu season saw a lot of uncertainties, citing the worst outbreak in Japan in the last 2 decades, adding that half of the patients visiting his clinic were returning outbound travelers. Lam also noted that when he was traveling in Japan, he noticed lots of tourists not wearing masks. While there is still risk of the virus spreading within the community, he urged residents from high-risk groups to wear a mask in crowded places to protect themselves. Bess Leung, Cable News.
And now let's take a look at the stock market. The Hang Seng Index ended the day down 192 points. Top 10 active stocks, Tencent was down $3, Alibaba was down 10 cents. SMIC was down 75 cents and JD.com was down $5.60. Business activity in the private sector grew at a slightly slower pace in January, but remained in the expansion territory for 4 months in a row. Hong Kong's Purchasing Managers Index logged 51 in January, down from 51.1 in December last year, marking the lowest level since last October. Any reading above the 50 threshold marks denotes expansion. S&P Global, the index compiler, said increased business activity and new orders have led to a rise in private sector employment, but the overall improvement in business conditions remained modest. Export sales have experienced their largest decline since October, driven by concerns over the global economy in the short term, especially the potential impact of US tariffs on international trade. While overall business activity expanded for 4 consecutive months, heightened global economic uncertainties and weak demand led to continued pessimism towards business outlook the year ahead. On to the weather now. Mainly cloudy and it will be cool tomorrow morning. The minimum temperature will be about 15 degrees. Dry with sunny intervals during the day with a maximum temperature of around 18 degrees. Now let's take a look at the weather around the world. And that's our news tonight. I'm Cheryl Yun. Thanks for watching and good night.